What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
Spoken! RadioWhat.com.
What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my program, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, I encourage you to go to DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me DJing your event. Today on the program, I have Danny Schneider, the Cultural Vultures. Yes, I found him on Instagram. He seemed pretty cool. He's a musician, and he's got some records that are in the can already, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy to talk to. So I reached out, and I said, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And he said, hey, yeah. So let's give a talk to Danny Schneider. Calling Danny Schneider now.
Hello?
Hi, Daniel Schneider, please.
Yes, this is him.
The Cultural Vulture?
Yes.
Hey, it's Keys Dan from the What Makes You Famous podcast. How's your day?
Good, how are you?
I'm so good. You know, usually I have to drive around a lot. I do a lot of driving for all the things I do. And today I didn't have to drive so much. It's been kind of a lazy Thursday. I got my hair cut. What have you done today, Daniel Schneider?
I was in the studio a little bit this morning. Got off work this morning at 8 a.m. and I'm a firefighter. That's what I do for a living. And then the music is what I do on the side, which affords the firefighting allows me to do the music. So
dig it. All right. I was a firefighter from 89 to 99 in the Florida Keys, Key Largo Fire Department. What department are you at?
I was with Newport Fire Department, which is kind of a smaller inner city type fire department for 13 years. And I moved out to the airport about 3 years ago. So now I'm an aircraft firefighter.
Aircraft firefighter. Now that is a different kind of animal altogether. I remember doing some training with that, with jet fuel. And putting out jet fuel is a whole lot different than putting out gasoline or any other incendiaries.
And just the way that you attack a fire is completely different than how you would a structural fire. So it makes it all interesting though, because it's new and you keep learning and keep growing and getting better at your job, better at what you do.
That is so right. I mean, with you say 13 years, and how long you've been doing the airport? 3 years at the airport and 13. Yeah. So,
16
years under your belt. I'm pretty sure you know how to fight a fire.
I have my moments.
Now, did you get up in rank, or did you stay a pumperhead or the hose man, nozzleman?
I was a nozzleman for a long time. The highest that I made it was lieutenant, and then when I went to the airport, I went back down to just a regular firefighter again.
See, I imagine that does happen. And you never know what you're going to get with this podcast. Here I am. I'm talking to Daniel Schneider, the Cultural Vulture. The Culture Vulture. How would you say that? What is it on your Instagram?
It's I didn't realize it was so difficult to say for people, but it's Cultural Vultures. Actually, how I came up with that is so I was releasing books. And I released 2 books. The first book was Forced Attrition, and the second book was Primordial Boredom. And the third book was going to be Cultural Vultures. And I just decided, I write all this music and everything, and I wanted to. So I decided instead to release an album, and I just released it all under Cultural Vultures. And I did 2 albums, and I'm working on the third one now. And because the books, they were just books of poetry.
Yeah.
I always wanted to sort of create, like, I think the best marriage is between poetry and song. So I try to, poetry by itself doesn't always resonate with people, but you put music behind it, and it can resonate a little bit more and become something bigger than just words on a sheet of paper. So that's what I tried to do, was just marry those two together, and instead of releasing the books, then I just started releasing albums, going that route, and that's been a lot more fun for me to do than just the books, because it allows other avenues. So like I do the music videos, and just the people that you get to meet in the industry as well, is, like, it's just really cool. You do something, you put something out there, and then more people start to become excited about what you're doing, and it makes me excited.
Yeah, Danny Schneider. Well, the ability to say Cultural Vultures is probably my demise. It's a great name. Cultural Vultures. It has that sound in both letters and both different words, and I think it works out just fine. And it has a meaning to you. Cultural Vultures. What does that mean to you?
So I guess the idea in the beginning was to kind of, like, I just don't really. So this is might go off in a little bit of a tangent, but
we got time. This is a long form podcast.
All right. So I don't really feel like that music today is doing any justice. Like there's very little difference to me between commercial and artistic production, and it's so to me it's like you create something of substance and beauty, and at least that's the goal anyways. It can mean something to you, but it might not mean anything to anybody else, and that's okay. But the goal is to create something that is meaningful in art, that moves people, and it can mean something to someone at different points in their life. And I feel like a lot of music nowadays, to me, it's lost that. Like, it's become so, I don't want to say overproduced, but it's lacking the substance behind it, And so I wanted to write something that it's not really commercially successful, and it also, like, wouldn't fit to sell something. The only thing that it would fit is if somebody is going through something, or somebody is feeling a certain way, they can relate to it and say, well, this is I completely relate to this, and I know that I'm not alone. There's other people out there that are dealing with the same sort of thing that I happen to be going through at this time in my life, and everything's going to be okay. Life is that roller coaster, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And during the bad parts, that's when, like, you want to kind of put something out there that help people remember that, like, you go through the bad parts to remember the good, to get back to the good. And you always learn something from it as well. So that's sort of like what that is from. So the Cultural Vultures comes from people, essentially vultures or scavengers, and they are the ones that aren't the artist, but they're the ones that are taking and profiting off of the artist. Does that make sense?
Oh, I can dig it, Danny Schneider. And okay. In particular, you mentioned that point. Here I am. I'm talking to you. I'm getting content for my podcast while I'm getting your story, and you're getting to share your story with the people that listen to my podcast, and it's mutually beneficial. I presume, hopefully,
for sure. And this is exactly what I meant before. Like, putting out something and doing something, like it gives you the ability to meet other people, such as yourself. Like, you get to meet people like you that, if I hadn't done this, I never would have met you or had contact with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's definitely a good thing. Like, in a way, like it's just opening up doors and avenues that in my life that I never even thought were would ever happen before.
Oh, absolutely. I did this to not only to promote people, but to have genuine conversations with people, to learn about people. I mean, here you are. You were a firefighter. I had no idea, but from looking at your Instagram, and that's how I found you primarily, was on your Instagram. And I had, and here I was a firefighter for 10 years, and we chewed a lot of the same dirt. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, where are you located now, Danny Schneider?
Right now I live in northern Kentucky, like right out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Northern Kentucky, which is closer to Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, so I'm getting the geography. Here I am in Conway, Arkansas, and yes, we were up until now complete strangers, maybe casual acquaintances on Instagram, and now we get to have a conversation, and it's going to be shared with people all over the world if they care to listen. And
for sure, yeah.
So, Danny Schneider, music. Now you do music. Was that from an early age? Have you always lived in the Cincinnati area, the Kentucky, northern Kentucky area?
Yeah, I grew up here, just in northern Kentucky. So I'm a Kentucky boy. For sure.
That's good. I haven't spoken to anybody, at least on the podcast, from Kentucky. What's life like in northern Kentucky? Or did you have most of your time, your fun times in Cincinnati, Ohio, since you're so close?
It's all about the same. Like it would be because Cincinnati's right on the border,
right,
of Kentucky. So I mean, you literally can stand in Kentucky and see all the buildings in Cincinnati, and then Covington and Newport, like those all have their own skyscrapers and skyline as well. So the city has really progressed and done a great job since for as long as I can remember, from growing up into it. Like especially when I was much younger, that I used to go to all the indie concerts and everything like that. Back when like concert tickets were $10.
Miss those days.
You go into like a sweaty cigarettes filled bar, and it was all part of the atmosphere. You knew that you were going to be sweaty and gross, but you get to see an awesome, amazing band, but you kind of miss those days. And I think that those bands they're still out there, but it's just not the same. Just because of the people that control those clubs now. It's sort of more of a universal type of thing. They're all owned by the same company, so you don't get like those indie bands anymore that came through and just were sweating on stage every night. But like that, it was always great. There was always a great music scene in Cincinnati and Kentucky as well. And so I was very fortunate to grow up in that time period to have that, like to be a part of the grit in Cincinnati and everything. And now it's like completely gentrified, and there's like all those old clubs are torn down, and like they've been replaced with organic, fooderies and whatnot, which is all good too. I mean, everything has its time and place, and that time is come and gone for those places, and now there's something new, and it's all it is good though. But the city is very progressive, and I still like living here, and the great thing about it too is it's inexpensive, so it allows me to travel when I want to. Been all over Europe and Australia. And yeah, and the only reason I'm able to do that is because I live here. And, if I lived in New York City, like you live in the metropolis, but you also can't really leave the metropolis because it's so expensive. Like San Francisco is the same way. But whereas now, like if I want to go up to New York City, I take a flight up there, and it's not that expensive. Just go up there, visit for a week or so, come back. If I want to find tickets to Europe and go to Paris, there's a Paris flight that leaves out of Cincinnati twice a day. Just go.
Yeah.
And I think that's also like such an importance for people to do is to get out of your comfort zone and go to these other places in the world and see how people live and see how people talk to each other and see how and people are people wherever you go, but there's just little differences. And once you learn about people in general, and you learn about that, you see just how magnificent all of this really is.
Danny Schneider, you've given me a few avenues to explore, some things to unpack, so to speak. You're working at the airport. I mean, and you seem like a much younger man than me. I'm 50 years old, and I'm getting a view of the world from a younger man's perspective. What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 96.
96. See, well, okay, maybe 10 years younger than me. So maybe a 40-year-old man.
Yes.
Yeah. And you still have insight, because it seems you have your fingers on the pulse of certain things. Like, you see the way that your city and your part of the world has changed over the years, and you've observed that. And does that reflect in your art whenever you're creating the music and doing those things, and your travels around the world? I'm guessing working at the airport, does that have the benefits of being able to travel a little bit easier, maybe?
Unfortunately, it does not. I wish it did. And yeah, like I've always, that's something that all of us that work there question, like, can we get flight benefits? And they're like, no, absolutely not. And we're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And it would be great if we could, but it's all in how you choose to spend your money and your time. Like, like some people, they buy boats, or they buy really nice, expensive trucks, or whatever. For me, like I travel and I write music, and I go in the studio, and I'm completely DIY. Like I record these albums. I'm not really connected to anybody, and which has its own greatness to it, because there's nobody that tells me what I'm supposed to be doing, Right. But on the other side of that coin, like, you don't really have like anybody marketing you and all that stuff like that as well. So, I think eventually, like, you'd want to sort of develop a symbiotic relationship with a company that could help you, and you work together to achieve a certain goal. But yeah, like my words are my words, and I don't have to, there's nobody telling me like, well, you should change this, because people aren't going to understand it, or they're not going to relate to this. And I'm like, well, there are a few that will, though. So, as far as like me living here and how that affects me, I just see myself as a person of the world itself. Like, I live here. This is where I reside, for now. I don't know for how long. It works for now. I have a house, that I take care of, and I do my thing in.
Sure.
And but as far as like the experiences and everything that I get come from traveling, and the people that you meet, and just the different types of people. Like, and the weird thing is, like, I'm at a point in my life where I can pick up energies in people. Like, I can decide, and I have that choice, like, immediately, whether or not I want to let someone into my life or not, based off of like their own, the energy that they put out, because there are bad energies, and I don't really need to deal with that anymore. So my own, I guess it all just comes, like how I write and everything just comes from my own meandering experience from everywhere, and all the people that have come across my life, and the things that I've learned, and how I've changed as a person. I can look at myself 20 years ago, and I was just some dumb kid, and like, if I would have had success 20 years ago, I would have ruined it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And,
now,
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I just think that, I was going to say is, I think that just changes with age, and you become better at understanding yourself, and you're not really second guessing yourself anymore.
All right, Danny Schneider, the cultural vulture. Now, you're talking about the traveling, and my mom worked for Delta, my stepdad worked for American, so I got the ability to travel when I was a younger man, at least all over the country. I never stepped outside of the United States like you did, Danny Schneider, and I'm sure, I'm a little jelly, as the kids would say, that you have been outside of this great country of ours. But you're let's see. You said you were talking about your music and how it's distributed. And when you're working for yourself, you can put out a product that you yourself like with nobody telling you what to do. But then you said you see things from both sides of the coin. You have no team backing you up, distributing your music, helping you to get it out there. Because okay, yes, you're talking about things that you say you like it, but I find that if I put something out there, if I like it, somebody else is going to like it as well. Most of the music that I play on RadioWhat.com is music that I enjoy. And the reason that people listen to it is because, they enjoy it too. That's great. I'm happy about that. But, funny, you're in Cincinnati. I think Amazon has a big hub there. And do you put your music out on Amazon and iTunes and all those other platforms?
Yeah, they do. They're actually building one right now. A huge hub. It's going to be their main hub is in Cincinnati, at the airport. But I do. It's on Amazon. It's on iTunes. It's Tidal, Spotify, Google Play. I think the only one the only streaming service that kind of rejected my music was Pandora.
What?
Yeah, but and that's all right. That's up to them. So it wasn't even discouraging to me. I was like, okay, it's fine. Do what you got to do. I mean, that's their business, but it's also yes. On vinyl too. Like I released it on vinyl records just because for me, like that's what makes it real at that point. Like all the digital stuff, like we lose power and then like everything's gone. But if I have like something that is tangible that I can hold, like I come from that realm, like like where you had records when you were a kid and you had CDs and you had cassettes and like you had something tangible that you can hold. And then at the end of that, like that's where I feel good. Like when I'm holding my actual, like I essentially created something from nothing at all. Like
yes.
It's something that didn't exist previously and now it does, and it's just out there in the ether somewhere. So
oh yeah, Danny Schneider, you're talking about records, man. I mean, growing up as a baby DJ when I started in '86, I had probably close to 1,000 records, and I enjoyed holding them and looking at the artwork. And funny, today I don't have any records anymore. Oh, no, that's a lie. I have one record left in my collection. It's a Jimi Hendrix Experience record, and I don't know why I still have that one, but it's the only one I have. Well, yeah, oh, absolutely. But today, while I was waiting to get my hair cut, right next door was the Target. So I go into the Target and I meander back to the electronics area, and what do they have? Vinyl records. And I'm looking at it with eyes of nostalgia, thinking, wow, I really haven't played records since '99. I gave up my techniques back then, and I haven't had to play a record since then, really. I mean, I guess maybe I must have touched a record since then, but to have my own turntables, haven't needed it. It's all been digital, and you having your stuff on vinyl, it's serving a niche. There's quite a few DJs that are going back to vinyl because of the warmth and the feel and the artwork of having vinyl. And I'm glad you put it out there. I'm digging on your culturevultures.org website, and it has it all right there. All your links are at the bottom that tells people where to go. And your Twitter.
Yeah, that was
your Twitter link is off. But
was it?
So far all the other links have been linking up to your music, Danny Schneider. I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not very computer savvy when it comes to that stuff, and I had to figure all that out painstakingly over a month or so. Like how luckily the Squarespace is where I released it all from. Like it kind of made it a little bit easier, but yeah. Like I prefer the records over the digital.
All right.
And also like what I like about records too is like there's just like for me like I have like there were albums at least in the past like they told a story. Like there's a lot of like that music and like now, like everything is just based off of singles. In the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of singles. You know, they would release like 45s and everything, and then like they started releasing like albums, and then those albums, like, they essentially told a story. Like, you listen to the whole thing, and like, and it was beautiful, and it was a new form of storytelling. Like, and that's sort of why I released it on vinyl, because my own albums do the same thing. Like, each song is in place for the next, like, and it does tell a story, and it's essentially like you're taken away from the singles again, and I think it's better to listen to the whole thing. Like, and the other really neat thing to me about it is like, you can hear things on the vinyl, like, especially with headphones on, like a really good set of headphones. Like, you listen to the Michael Jackson Thriller album. Oh, and yeah. So like, what was it? He brought in Eddie Van Halen to play that guitar riff. Mm-hmm. On what was it, on Thriller? Is it Beat It?
Yeah, Beat It had the Eddie Van Halen had the solo in there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Quincy Jones, Eddie Van Halen just played a bunch of different stuff, and then Quincy Jones like cut the tape and the actual tape that he recorded on, and then like made that track the way that it sounds, like a do 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 do. Do, 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 do. And if you listen to it on headphones, you can hear where the cut is. Yeah. And like, you can't do that like with digital, and you can't do that, like, not that stuff really matters and it's not meant to be heard, but it is still unique in its own right. Like that kind of stuff is really interesting to me anyways. Like, I love that stuff. Like, you know, it just makes it personable and real. Like not everything was just laid out perfectly in the beginning. Like, it took a lot of cutting and pasting, the same as we do on computers and everything else. But they had to actually physically cut it, and it's pretty neat to me.
Oh, for an aficionado, listening to it with headphones, it's a totally different animal. You do hear the pops, you do hear the clicks. You were going through the years when people had 45s and you missed one niche when music started to go portable and people wanted to listen to it in their cars, in their vans. 8 tracks. Now, 8-track tapes, you had to listen to the whole album. Before, there were a few 8-track players that had the fast forward, and it was only forward. I don't remember any 8-track players that even had a backward. But for the most part, you put that 8-track tape in, and yeah, you better be going on a road trip, because you're going to be listening to that whole album.
For sure, yeah. I remember my dad had a 78 Blazer that and his had an 8-track player, and I think he had Inagata DeVita.
Good one.
And I remember just listening to that, like we're going down to Mammoth Cave or something like that when I was a kid, and that playing for some reason in my head that popped up when you said 8-track, because he had the 8-track in his truck, and those things. But they would always get so hot in the sun, and then eventually not play right.
Yeah,
people just in their cars. But yeah,
Danny Schneider, I heard that siren in the background, and you stop for a second. The sirens. I mean, I've been out of firefighting since 1999. And sirens still give me a twitch, you know, a feeling that you.
It is
a
subtle rush, yeah.
Yes,
it definitely is a subtle rush, and especially a Q siren.
A Q siren, yeah. Now, tell me what you're talking about. The wind-up siren.
Yeah, well, yeah, like the Q is on those are on the actual fire trucks themselves. Like, so the engines or a truck company will have a Q siren, and it'll be on the front bumper, and it just spins, and it makes that real distinct siren sound.
Yes.
As opposed to the ambulances, you always hear the other ones. The Qs is, I think, is what gets me, that kind of makes me smile a little bit. It warms my heart.
Oh, I remember I had an old F850. It was the only pump and run truck that we had. It was great for grass fires that, you know, if you wanted to pump and run. And that one had that Q siren. And I remember it would wind up, and then it didn't have a brake on it. So you would be halfway through the fire and the thing would still be winding down.
Yeah. Now they all have siren brakes on them, which is definitely a helpful thing, because especially when you pull up on a fire, because you have, I remember so many fires in Newport that I went on, and you got the electric to the house popping and like sparks going everywhere. All the fire trucks are just loud. It was always so loud,
right,
with the fans and and the pump running high and everything like that. Then you go into the fire, and there were times inside of it, like, when I'm waiting for water or whatever, and like I just remember thinking like how peaceful it was in there, and like everything is literally on fire. Like It was like sort of like this weird chaotic peace. Like I knew I was fine, but like you're just looking around at everything, and like it's already self-ventilated, yes. So like you can see things, like, if it's not self-ventilated, it's a little bit different because you can't see anything, as I'm sure you well know. But yeah, like it's just great. Like I'm very fortunate to do something that I love to do. Like, to anybody listening, I think that if you are ever questioning, like, if like your job, if you're not happy in it, but like say you make a lot of money doing it, I'd say quit your job and find something that you love to do, because no amount of money is ever worth your unhappiness. Like it's a real thing. Like you just feel lighter and better.
Now, Danny Schneider, for the listeners, I know we're talking about fires and accidents and critical times in people's lives, and it sounds like there's a joy in our voices talking about them. But yes, we're there. I mean, when I was doing the job, it was to save lives, and we're talking about it with a nostalgia, and not that, hey, that we're belittling. Yes, people are losing their property and their lives and these things.
Sure.
But yes, and firefighters, and you're getting a little bit of insight on how firefighters talk about fires. Wow, that was a great fire. No, yes, we know in our minds it wasn't great that there was a fire and somebody's house got burned down or somebody got hurt. But we're thinking, how great it was that we were able to be there and knock it down and limit the property loss and the loss of life. Is that where you're at, Danny Schneider?
Yeah, and I want to thank you for clarifying that. Like, yes. That's not like I don't ever want to come off like I'm belittling anything that we do or the how it actually affects families, because that to me has always been heartbreaking. And whatever it is, like, if we're working, a patient that is coded and like the family is just hanging over you, just sobbing, crying and everything like that, that's hard to deal with, like, in those moments. But like there's the other moments, like when you show up and you're just there to throw a ladder up to pull people out of the top floor because their building's on fire and like there's flames around them and they're scared to death, and you're taking them out of that. Like that, there's a feeling there that just like, and I'm sure like you can't really compete with that. Like you help somebody in a desperate time of need, and like in the moments it's always like almost like robotic. Like you just do what needs to be done. But then in the aftermath, like when you're sitting down thinking about it or talking about it with everybody, you're like, can you believe we were in that situation? Like it definitely. It's a strange feeling.
Oh, I remember grabbing that nozzle, going into the house, putting out the fire, doing what I had to do. Remember trying not to do the surround and drowned, but certainly using the science of you can put out a whole house with 4 gallons of water if you do it right, with the steam, with the conversion. But notwithstanding that, once you put all the fire out, you come outside, you're huffing, you're puffing, and then you look at the fence across the street, and there's the homeowners. And yeah, you feel them. You feel for them. Oh, I'm with you, man. Now you're taking me back. Nostalgia is a weird thing, I'm looking at it lovingly, but I'm remembering all the times when I saw the sad faces and, firefighting. It's not an easy thing, man.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
and like the camaraderie though, like,
Yes.
and I'm sure that you know this, that's what makes a job so great. Like you develop, like, these guys become your family. Like,
Yes.
you know, you work with the same guys for 20 years or whatnot, and like they're your family, and you laugh together and you make fun of each other, and they're just great. And
Yes.
and it's also great because both of my parents were firefighters. So my
What?
mom,
It's in the
my
blood.
mom, yeah, that's how I got involved with it. And like, obviously, like, there's I have other things and interests as well, like the music and everything, and just art. Like, I'm art school all the way, but became a firefighter, because of that. Like it was great. Like, I could combine two worlds that typically aren't ever combined, and I thank my parents for that. Like,
Yeah.
because I just grew up in the fire service, and it's what I became. And so I was able to love art and love, like, learn art history and all that stuff like that, and learn music and all that, but to also combine that world with this other world that, typically you don't see.
Well, Danny
like,
Schneider, the cultural vulture, it's conducive to have another job when you're a firefighter. Usually it's 24 on and 48 off. What are you going to do with 2 days off? Nothing? Sit around? No. But you're talking about your influences from your parents. And yes, they influenced you to become a firefighter, to have that love for that. But it sounds like your dad, at least with his 8 tracks, and I'm going to be a little cliche, influenced you from an early age in music. And yes, here's the cliche part. Danny Schneider, what sort of music influences did you get? Who influenced you as a young man?
So I've always loved music, like, and like, for whatever reason, I was just drawn to it. Like, my dad, like, introduced me. He was, like, really into, like, the surf rock, like the Vultures and the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean and all of that, like, just that California surf music from the 50s and 60s. And so that, I would say, that was, like, my first kind of experiences with that. But then obviously, like anything, that led into all the 60s music, and like Jimi Hendrix, and then you get into the 70s with Led Zeppelin, and you're just, like, blown away. You're like, how did somebody, like, make this? Like, this is, like, the first time you put those headphones on and you listen to like No Quarter by Led Zeppelin, you're just like, how did you come up with this? Like, it's just always, like, was crazy to me. And like, I mean, there's just so many, there's 500 bands that I can name off. I would say, I'll just say my biggest influences, like, started probably in high school. And that was, like, with David Bowie and 9 Inch Nails. And I remember 9 Inch Nails, one of my buddies gave me a Pretty Hate Machine back in 1992. And I just, that album blew me away, especially being, a freshman in high school, like, not really knowing which direction to go into or anything like that. Like, all my friends were, like, into the punk rock scene or into the skateboarding scene and all that stuff like that. And I was just kind of, like, just everywhere with my taste and everything. And so I listened to 9 Inch Nails, and then that led into stuff like Skinny Puppy, and then that led into, like, and then all the, like, the Pearl Jam and Nirvana, of course.
Right, being in the 90s, you had to do a little bit of grunge in there.
Yeah, and so all of that stuff was really great to me. But then, like, I started going back in time,
Yes.
like to Nina Simone and Frank Sinatra, and just all of those, like, which then brought me even further back to, like, well, what else is out there? And then you start listening to, like, Robert Johnson and old blues,
Yes.
like Son House, and you're just like, well, people have just been recording for so long and just been making stuff and just doing it on their own, and so that's, I just sort of came to that realization that, like, I'm just gonna do it on my own. I don't need anybody else. Like, it would be great to have a band, but I don't need one. Like I can do all this. And so then I just started doing it and redoing it and rewriting and until I come up with something that I'm happy with.
Now, are you playing musical instruments or are you synthesizing everything?
No, everything is all instruments. So so I'll write the music and everything, and then I'll go in the studio with my producer. His name's Rich Hordinsky. He's in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Shout out.
And we'll figure out all the parts together and everything, and then so I'll play the guitar parts, and there's a little bit of him playing guitar on there as well, and then all the violins and cellos. Like there's a violinist from he is in the Cincinnati Symphony, and he'll come and play those parts, and so then we just arrange them and with my words and with what I've written and the chord structures and everything. So like one thing I haven't gotten into, and this is sort of how like I base everything in my life. Yeah. But like I build a lot of furniture.
What?
I build a lot of things just in general. I'll build furniture, or I'll build whatever. I'll come up with something, I'll draw it out, and then I'll build it.
Wait, like with wood and a saw and hammer and nails?
Yeah, like just woodworking and.
So you're not going to IKEA and just grabbing a kit?
No, I build all my furniture in my house.
Danny Schneider, you got more facets. All right. Tell me about the building. Tell me more.
Well, so what I wanted to say was like that's sort of how I look at everything in my life. Like you're building a foundation, and you start off with the foundation. So in music, like the foundation would be like the chord structure, and then you start adding all the elements that make it beautiful. Like, well, what's the rhythm going to be? What's the drums? What's the bass line going to be? It's all in the same key, and what strings, what do I add those in at? And like, it's the same thing when you're building a piece of furniture. You start off with the foundation and you build up, and then you start adding all the elements of that piece of furniture that just makes it beautiful, and makes it just not just a simple piece of furniture that doesn't do anything. But you know what I mean? Like, it's essentially just creating beauty. And I'd say that's what all of our goals are. Or should be anyways, is just to create something that was beautiful. Some people do it with families, and they create families, and that is the most beautiful thing that you can create, and other people do it with music or art or paintings or whatever, but it's all the same thing. Like, you have to have a strong foundation to build off of.
I like the way you put that, Danny Schneider, the cultural vulture. Now, you say you started with art from an early age, and before you branched out into the fire department. Tell me about the art from an early time, and what kind of art.
So I went to school, did a lot of art history, and studied all the paintings and all the greats and everything like that, and kind of learned that a lot of artists they're popular and big because of who they knew at the time, and that sort of taught me a little bit about marketing. And like Jackson Pollock was, he's famous for his art. He threw the paint on there, but he was also in deep with Guggenheim, and she was a prominent figure in the art world. So there's just a lot of that stuff. I'd say what has always moved me though would be like obviously I love looking at old paintings. Like, I've been to Florence, Italy, and like you go there and you're just immersed in the Renaissance period. Like, but then like you learn about all the Medicis and like how they essentially financed the entire Renaissance period. And they were essentially the first banking system and the first godfathers, or mafia even. But out of that sort of despondency came, all of this beautiful artwork, like from Da Vinci to Michelangelo's. You go in there and you see David or like all the just Raphael's work and just all these artists from that time period, and a lot of it's biblical because that's what they were told to paint.
Right.
But like, I'd say what moves me the most, like moving forward, would be the futurist and the cubist, more like not. I definitely like Picasso, but I'd say Marcel Duchamp was probably one of my favorite artists for many reasons. One, he just saw sort of the craziness of it all, of art, and he was an amazing painter. Every time I still see there's a painting, it's called A Woman Descending a Staircase, and every time I see it, like, it still moves me. It's a nude woman just descending a staircase, and that's all it is, but it's beautiful to me in the way that it's painted. And so I've always loved that artwork. And then
I just looked it up. It's beautiful painting.
Yeah. I forget about the computers and the internet. Everything is at our fingertips.
It is at your fingertips. And I didn't know where this conversation was going to go, Danny Schneider, and I'm getting knowledge from you. I'm getting knowledge about art in Florence, Italy. And it's so good that you're well traveled and you've seen things. All I can do is live vicariously through you and others, being in Conway, Arkansas. And you mentioned raising a family. I'm doing that myself. Have you started a family?
No, it's just me.
Wow. Okay.
I was married.
Okay.
Once before. It just didn't work out. Just in different places. But from that divorce, I would say is where my first album came from, because divorce is essentially dealing with a death, and I haven't spoken to her in 8 years maybe. Yep. And but yeah, so that's where the first album came from. That's how I dealt with that divorce. Was I had to get it all out of me. Like I had to like, no, I can't. You can't hold on to that, because that will eat you up inside. So I had to find ways to release that from myself, and so I wrote it all out.
It's amazing, Danny Schneider, how that happens. How from pain comes creativity, and I've heard it before. And I'm hearing it right now from you, Danny Schneider. That's amazing. And so what year was this? This is 7 years ago?
Yeah, it was the end of 2012. So yeah, about that.
It's amazing that 2012 is 7 years ago. I still think of 10 years ago as the 90s.
I know it is weird. I was like, like, I remember where I was during September 11th, and like I still feel like that wasn't that long ago, and
right,
we're almost at 20 years, like, which is kind of hard to think about. Right.
So, how many instruments do you play?
I play guitar, piano, bass, a little bit of drums, but I'm not great at drums. But I've always loved them, and I can hold tempos and everything, and do that. But really, I just like come up with ideas, and I'm like, I'll have an actual drummer who's proficient at that play those parts. But the rest of it, I'll either write on guitar or piano typically.
Well, you mentioned Quincy Jones and doing it all yourself. What is it? Foster the People. Didn't he send that Pumped Up Kicks? This is something that I've heard, and I think I've read it before. Is he recorded Pumped Up Kicks as a demo without his band? And he was just, he was in his house, in his home studio, and he recorded the drums and the guitar and all the different parts. And then he sent it in to his label, and they released it just like that without his band, So you can do that in this electronic age where you could play it all and do it all. And I'm glad you have a producer, because he's helping you to edit. And you might think that, wow, this is perfect. This is good. This is the way it should be. And then you have an outside, at least one person that's giving you an outside ear and saying, you know what if we did this? And then you're going to find, ooh, you're right. I never thought of it that way. But
I think that's just so important in general when creating, like, it's not about me. It's not about like if you're creating anything, like, you have to take your ego out completely, because this is not a world for somebody with a small ego, like you, or a big ego, I guess I should say, but or a small mind. But you have to, like, you have to just leave all that and then like be open to other people's ideas and you know, because that's when things are great. They're made great. Like I said, it's not about me. It's not about any of that. It's just about making something that's beautiful. And at the end of the day, like, and that's how I see it anyway. So,
so in the creative process, how often do you butt heads with your editor or your producer?
I typically don't. Like, I'm a listener. Like, definitely. I'd say the only thing that I'm like, no, I think that we should keep this in is like if he tells me to, like, we should probably lose this verse because it'll make the song too long. And I'm like, they're not going on the radio. You know?
Well, that's the Freddie Mercury approach when he did Bohemian Rhapsody. 6 minutes. No, you got to cut that down to 3-minute song. Nope, not going to do it. I'm going to write the greatest song ever made, or pretty much one of them, arguably.
And that's funny about that too. Like, I don't think that Bohemian Rhapsody was successful until like almost a decade after, at least in America. Like, I think it was successful overseas, but I think in America, I don't think it was that successful, at least until like Wayne's World came out. And then,
for sure.
and then they kind of opened that door back up for them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they did Live Aid and killed it. So they don't even know what I'm talking about.
No. It was big. It was successful. It's one of the greatest songs ever written. And then Wayne's World gave a whole new resurgence to it. All the kids thought, "Wow, listen to this great new song," and all us old farts are going, "Yeah, that's been around for a while." but I'm glad you like it.
For sure.
No, and so you're not trying to put your music out on the radio, not trying to get it out there.
Well, I mean, I would definitely.
You're open to it.
Do that. Like, I would love for people to listen to it and for people to love what I'm doing, you know, and you know, I release music videos and everything else to kind of give like a visual image, because we are a visual culture now.
Yes.
You know, and so like I'll do that. I want people to listen to it, but I'm not going to force it on anybody. And if like radio stations want to play it, that's awesome. That's great for me. And it just like what I would like to do is just make enough to where it just sustains itself, where I can keep putting out albums. You know, I can keep putting out things where it's not costing me a lot of money to do it. Like, I'm just whatever I get back from it, I put back into it and keep releasing more material for people, for fans essentially and whatnot, you know?
Yes. Danny Schneider, the cultural vulture. Now, what genre would you put your music into if you had to put it in a box?
I don't know. Like, I mean, there's a lot of violins and cellos with guitars and with sort of rock music. I'd say it does definitely have that sort of 60s vibe to it. But then like I have a lot of Moog on there as well, which makes it a little bit more 21st century as well.
What's Moog?
So, a Moog is it's a brand of a synthesizer. It's all analog synthesizers. I think they're out in Ashland, North Carolina.
I think I just heard about it yesterday on a podcast. But yes, go with the Moog. What is it?
Bob Moog. He designed this sort of synthesizer, and it's just all these really crazy ornate sounds that you just can't get with anything else, and like just the thickness of them and everything, like you almost feel it, like when I play it, like especially when I play it live, like I can feel that sound more than you can with everything. It's a very full, rich sound. That's
Moog, Moog.
Yes,
Moog. Yeah, I'm looking at some of them, and yeah, they look pretty cool. It's got the little keyboard on there with a bunch of dials and knobs. And all
those you can manipulate the sound itself and like change it and change the frequency and like the lay of it and everything like that. So that you can do a lot with all of those, and that was sort of like his whole thing that he did, and kind of changed that. And it was just a new instrument for all these artists to kind of pick up and use to creativity in a creative way. So
So what kind of sounds? Can you do the guitar and the violin and the drums all by yourself?
I do not do the violins by myself.
But can
you? No, not really. I mean, I've tried. And
right.
It's like it doesn't sound like. But music is the same. Like you can write music and
sure.
put music out there, and then give it to somebody to. You can write it on piano or guitar, and then give it to somebody to play. So.
Yeah, I don't want to put an artist out of a job, because you mentioned earlier in the podcast, starving artist. Yeah, or I guess it's been mentioned many times, starving artist, and the word starving in front of artist, it gets in there. So please support your local artist. Go out to one of those sweaty clubs that we were talking about before, and support. Do that. Public service message.
For sure, yeah.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what's great. Like, there's still people that are out there doing it, and like that's just amazing to me. Like, going out there and essentially doing the whole starving artist thing. I think that there's other ways to do that now, to where you're not killing yourself anymore. Like, me personally, I don't want to live like that.
Oh no, so. It's great that you have the firefighting job that gives you stability, and it gives you the ability to the stability and the ability to go out and do other things, pursue other endeavors, other creative avenues, and that's what you've done with your 2 days off. You go off and is the airport still 1 day on, 2 days off?
Yes, it is. I work 24 on, 48 off.
Yeah, and with those 2 days off, you can create, and so you have one of the Moogs, and that's like a $2,000 piece of equipment, man. But if you're going to go for it, right?
Yeah, I mean they're not cheap, but there isn't really anything like them either. So.
Yes. No, I'm looking at it, and I did say. You said Moog, and I went, man, I've heard that word before, and it was yesterday on a podcast. I think it was Rogan's podcast, The King, and he was talking.
Check that out. I love his podcast. He's got some really excellent guests on there.
You know what? And I started this podcast, What Makes You Famous? Yes, okay. Every famous person wants to be on Joe Rogan, but not everybody is famous enough to go on Joe Rogan, but I find that everybody has a story. And Danny Schneider, you have a story, not just about the cultural vultures where you're doing the music, but you're also a firefighter, and you're also an artist, and you've also traveled around the world a bit, and you've learned some things, and you're imparting that knowledge right here. And I'm sucking your brain dry. I love it. Let's do it, man. Let's do this. And so what other avenues can we explore with Danny Schneider? Your parents were a great influence on you. You're from northern Kentucky, close to Cincinnati, Ohio. Tell me about how Danny Schneider used to party in his 20s. Well,
I'd say, yeah. I mean, I'm still very close with some of my mates who I've known my whole life, and we still meet up, on the weekends and whatnot, and hang out together. I was never really a big drinker.
Yeah.
Didn't really do drugs ever.
Great.
To me, like that, it was just always kind of a waste of time. And I like that too, because everything that I do comes from me. Like, right. It doesn't, there isn't, and I don't want to put down anybody who would do something to kind of expand their mind or whatever. I just think that there's other ways to get there. They're probably a little bit more difficult than to expand your mind than to do a DMT per se or something like that.
Sure. I mean, I've heard of the mushrooms, and I've been around marijuana. I've smelled it. I've never had it. I had a half a beer one time. I like the clarity that my mind has, and if I'm creating, and I'm not going, if marijuana came around on the vote, yeah, I'd legalize it. Stop fighting about it. Legalize it. Regulate it. All these drugs that can be manufactured and regulated. Legalize it. Stop fighting about it. Because if you look back at Prohibition, when people were fighting over alcohol, as soon as Prohibition ended, the fight stopped. Oh, okay. So, yeah, stop fighting. Regulate it. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I wouldn't, if people want to do it, that's what the people want.
Right.
And I say go for it, do it. For me personally, like, I wouldn't tell somebody ever to not do something. Like, do what works for you, but research it, know what you're getting into before you do it. But
handle your high.
Yeah, if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. Like,
right.
For me, there's other ways of sort of like reaching that stage of enlightenment, and that's what I think.
What's your way, Danny Schneider? What's your favorite way to get your juices flowing?
So I'll say that a lot of it comes when I'm writing, and I'll be writing, and like a lot of it will be just garbage. It's just crap. But like I'll keep writing, and I almost like get into a trance-like state, and you have to sort of you let other entities into the room. Like you let other things, because I do believe that we are surrounded by other things, and like you can channel them and sort of like almost become one with them for a brief moment, and then some of the words that I write at times, I'm like, I can't believe I came up with that. That's like I you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, where did that come from? Because that's not my personality at all, but it came from somewhere.
We're all connected. Whether you believe in a higher power or the Big Bang or whatever, we're all connected. We're all living together.
I do believe there's like almost a spider web of energy around the world,
sure.
And like you can tap into that energy, and that's why, like, if I have an idea about something, I'll keep it close. I don't talk about it with anybody because once it's out there, it's out there,
sure,
for anybody to grab. And it's funny too, like the whole cultural vultures thing. I did that name like when I released the first album, 2014, 15,
yes,
something like that. And then like 2 years later, there's a band called Culture Vultures that's out there.
Yep.
And then like I've seen Culture Vultures in a couple different places now where I've never seen it before that. And like and to me, like that's almost like proof. Like once things are out there, like they're just in the ether for somebody else to grab and use, and that's okay. Like,
yeah,
that's why
I'm noticing, Danny Schneider, you have the .org. What happened to the .com?
There was a when I was building my first website,
right.
I wanted to use a .com, and this website a company that does websites, they hacked the name beforehand. Aww. And then they wanted to charge me $1,500 to use that name, and I was like, huh. So I just changed it to .org.
Boo on squatters. Boo. They were just trying to make their money, and I'm not like whatever. That's whatever. So like you go to culturevultures.com, and like it's nothing. Like it's right, like, but I can't use that name because they took it because they knew that I was, because I had talked to them on the phone about making a website, sure. And so then they grabbed that and then said, well, we'll sell this to you for $1,500 if you want to buy it. And those stinkers.
Like, no, I don't.
No, you don't. No, and if you jam Cultural Vultures together and Google search it, it's going to come up with your website right at the top. I'm very happy about that. Happy for you, Danny Schneider. We're talking about a lot of things, man.
I'm glad that it's out there. Like, yeah, I never really know with that stuff. If I don't even know if it gets traffic or not. Like, like if people go to it, it's just out there. It is what it is.
No, and it's good, man. You build it with Squarespace, and I know a lot of podcasts get they're a great company because they were insightful enough to know, hey, this podcast thing, it's probably going to take off. People are going to start doing them. And as of the last thing I heard, and this is probably a couple of days ago, there's over 750,000 podcasts, and Squarespace was right along with them in the beginning, and they still get sponsored by them. And I'm looking at your website, man. It's concise, and it has all the info that I need, man. All the places to find your music, Danny Schneider. You did good.
Good. It's just one of those things, like, you never really know, like, how well people are going to perceive it, or if it's working right. Like, I remember I would click off of it to click on things just to make sure that it works. I don't know.
Yeah, just check your
I'm not
Twitter.
very computer savvy, like.
Yeah, check your Twitter link. That's the one that came up as a bad link. Oh no! Look, I just clicked it again. Maybe it was just on that one page. Then check all the different pages, because I just found your Twitter link on the main page, but I think I was on your contact page, and the Twitter link wasn't working.
All right.
But
I don't know if the Facebook is on there or not, because I don't have Facebook or anything like that. Like,
your Cultural Vultures Facebook page is on there.
Okay, that's on there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't have access to it anymore, because I just deleted Facebook completely, because I didn't think it was healthy.
All right. Well, I mean, you talked about you did your first album in 2012, and how many songs were on that one?
There's 10. There's 10 on both of the albums. There's
2 albums. Songs. Okay, yeah, so you took how long to build that first album? Because I know a lot of artists, they'll take their whole lives to come up with that first record, and they put it out, and every song's a hit. Oh my goodness, they were perfectly structured. And then the record company says, all right, in a year, you need to put out another album. Exactly the same, as good. You had your whole life to build one album. How long did it take to build that one? And then how long did it take to build the second album?
I'd say from start to finish, and it was probably 3 years to do the first album. And the second album was roughly a year. And then, like, this album that I'm doing now, this third album, I'd say probably will be another year. Not from now, but like a year total of me working.
Yeah. Same team, same artists, same studio musicians that have been working on all 3 albums? Yeah,
so far, yeah.
Cool. I mean, hey, once you got a good team, why mess up? Why mess with it? Why mess with perfection? And it's going very well. You're putting things together. Now, you're primarily writing all the lyrics and writing all the songs yourself. So this is Danny Schneider's brainchild, correct?
Yeah. I write all the songs, all the lyrics, all the the music, and then, like, a lot of times Rich Hordinsky he'll help me with the arrangements and everything like that, like and that sort of second voice in my head telling me, like, we should do it this way. I think this will be better, and I'm like, yeah, I agree, or no, I don't.
No, but it's good to have Rich Hordinsky in your corner. That's excellent. Shout out. Good to have a team. Of those two.
And so they're all just great people. Everybody, all those musicians that I've worked with, doing these albums are just fantastic people. But yeah, like, so the lyrics and everything, and like I said, like, I a lot of my lyrics, I try to write each lyric almost to have a double meaning, like so for people that still read lyrics, which I don't know if there are, but
I'm sure there are.
They're for people that still read lyrics, they could get something possibly out of it. And maybe they won't, though, too. So, but it is what it is at this point. So,
hey, it was fun for you to write it, and like I said, man, if you put it out there, if you like it, somebody else is definitely going to like it, man. It's good stuff, man. People are generally the same all over the world. Republican, Democrat. If you talk to them, they all want the same things, man. A good life, some money in their pocket, a nice job, happiness. It's all in the pursuit, man. And if you're writing and it's something that you like, hey, man, people are people, man. You're right about that in the beginning, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, and that's I think how people are. Like that's how they're that's what they're supposed to do. Like this whole thing while we're here is it's a learning process. Like we're learning so we can get to where we're supposed to be next.
Well, all right. Yeah. Danny Schneider, you got anything else going on today? You getting back in the studio? You say you just got off work earlier, and you jumped into the studio today already?
Yeah, I did a little bit of that, and then but I'll probably just work on some stuff tonight musically because at the end of August I'll be in the studio like for a while. So I've just been working out a lot of these details for these newer songs that are about to come out. So
now, is this Rich's studio or is this your studio?
No, this is Rich's studio.
And Rich is off-site. He's on a different place.
Yeah, he's in. It's in Walnut Hills, which is like a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio.
And say the name of his studio. Give him a shout out.
It's Monastery Studios. It's in Walnut Hills, and it's actually in an old church that he bought and converted into a studio because the just sounds magnificent in there. So like you record drum tracks and everything, like the sound inside of there is just really good.
Oh, anybody that's
really
been to it,
great albums came out of there.
Anybody that's gone to church knows that the acoustics are good. In fact, a lot of the music, going back to the music of the 60s, a lot of that was recorded in churches, even the secular stuff.
Churches and bathrooms, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, bathrooms, man. Weird Al Yankovic, his first recording of My Bologna was at the Central the Central Station in New York in the bathroom.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know that.
My Bologna. If you listen to it, it's all echoey and it's pretty cool.
But bathrooms have their own acoustics.
Yeah, they do.
Kind of weird. The tile does something cool with the acoustics. It's that you can't really get in other things.
All right, Danny Schneider, tell the people how to find you. I know we've been touching on your website and such, and find out more about Danny Schneider, Culture Vultures. I haven't even got into Zero History. What does that mean? And Dahlgren, is that somebody's name?
No. Dahlgren was it's a Samuel Delaney book. There's a city in there inside that book called Bologna, where
Bologna. Hey, we just mentioned that.
Yeah. And,
see that we're connected. We're connected, and I didn't even know it.
For sure. And the whole so Zero History to me was like just hitting the reset button.
Right.
Like starting over. Rebuilding myself and growth and that sort of thing like that. So Zero History. Dahlgren was more of like a place of in the book it's a place of like sort of despondency and that sort of thing, but like you're also getting yourself out of that. But it's just one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
And so I just figured why not?
Yeah.
I'm not at a level where I don't think I'm at a level where it matters.
No, Danny Schneider, it matters. It matters to you, man. It's something that was personal to you. What is it? Taylor Swift named it 22. That's just where she was at the time. Who knows where album names come from? Inagata Davida. It was a drunken stupor. It's in the Garden of Eden. Inagata Davida.
For sure, yeah.
Who knows how things get named. And yeah, so Danny Schneider. You got a new album coming out. Do you have a set time, or you still working on it?
Still working on that. I mean, I can give a set time, but I'll probably go past it. So, but that's not to say anything. But there is one definitely in the works, and it will be out sooner rather than later. Yes.
And do you have a name for it already?
I do not. Usually I don't come up with the names until that's sort of like the last thing that I do. Like even like the names of the songs, like I just get all the tracks out and everything and just sort of build that foundation like I was talking about before. And then at the end, like you add all those all those little elements. That's like kind of the last step for me, anyways. I know that things are different for different people. But
hey, that's your child, Danny Schneider, and hardly ever do you name a child before it's born. After the baby's born, you go, I will name him blah. You know?
Yeah.
You might think about names beforehand, but you hardly ever name them until it's born. So I'm looking forward to your new child coming out real soon, Danny Schneider of the Cultural Vultures. Anything else you want to tell the people?
No, just keep living, keep listening.
Matthew McConaughey.
I appreciate it.
Just keep living.
Yeah, I mean, and that's all you can do. Like, and I would say that like the world is it's not as tumultuous as it seems like when you watch the news. You know, like when you watch the news or you listen to social media or everything like that, like you would think that the world is just insane right now.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that it is.
Information overload.
I think because you hear like there's a lot of people that are upset about, you know, certain injustices and whatnot, and they have every right to be, for sure. But I don't think it's as bad as it's being portrayed.
No, it would be chaos in the streets if it was like it was on the internet. You know, the movement to where no, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman. You have to call me by this pronoun. It's a small group, but because of the internet, they have a large voice, and that's what happens.
And that's true. And I don't want to take anything away from anybody.
No, of course not.
I would also just
live
say,
your life.
Just live your life. Live your life, and just try to be good. People tend to listen to people that are a little bit more reserved than they do the people that are yelling.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I happen to call you by the wrong pronoun, don't yell at me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm old school, and because I am, but just, hey, I didn't know. You want to be called X? I'll call you X.
Yeah. I just don't think that, I think that you and I both come from a time where we didn't take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah. Boys and girls, we're all pretty much heading in the same direction. Pursuit of happiness, all that. Yeah. Life, liberty, and
just go after your own happiness, whatever that may be. Go after your happiness.
Dig it, Danny Schneider, the Cultural Vulture, hanging out there in northern Kentucky, real close to Cincinnati. And the people, how do you want them to find you online? Mostly the website.
You can go to my YouTube channel, and subscribe to that. That has all the tracks on there. If you have iTunes or Spotify or any of that stuff, you can go to that. Any sort of digital streaming title, whatever you choose, except for Pandora.
Yes, except for Pandora. Those guys, those guys are being stubborn, very unsportsmanlike. Well, you got a new subscriber.
You can go to culturalvultures.org.
Yes. Well, you got a new subscriber on YouTube and a new one on your Facebook page, and hopefully you get millions and millions of more subscribers finding out more about you, Danny Schneider, the Cultural Vulture.
That would be pretty neat. I always saw myself performing in front of thousands of people and sort of I want to perform a concert where everybody has that energy that we were talking about earlier, that vibration, and everybody in the audience just feels that vibration and it's just happy, if only for a moment in time. You just feel good, and that's really what I want to bring to the world.
See it, be it, man. You're going to project it out there. Thank you, Danny Schneider. Any last words for the people?
Just be happy, I guess.
Thank you so much, Danny Schneider. I appreciate you for being on the program, man.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, party people. I never know where these are going to go. Danny Schneider, not only a musician, but a lifesaver. Man, he's a 16-year veteran of the fire department. That guy's been putting out fires, saving lives. it was good chit-chatting about that as well as his music interest and his art interest as well. It's you never know where these things are going to go, and I'm so happy that Danny Schneider told his story, The Cultural Vultures. Look for Zero History and Dahlgren on, digitally everywhere and on vinyl. He's got it on vinyl, man. So if you still got a turntable, pick up the vinyl and listen to the pops and clicks and the warmth of vinyl. It's a beautiful thing. Reminiscing about the different mediums that music has been through, from the 45 records and even 8 tracks. I know we didn't talk about cassettes, but there's cassette tapes, and people aren't even watching videos on DVD anymore. It's all digital, it's singles. He did mention that it's singles rather than albums, and putting singles out there is where it's at, at 99 cents a shot or so on your Apple iTunes and your Spotify and your SoundCloud. That's a way to get your music out there, get your creativity out there. And if you like it, somebody else is going to like it. I'm so glad that you're out there putting it out there to the world, Danny Schneider, and all the other musicians and creators. And yes. Oh, he did mention that if you're in a job that you don't like, I don't care if you're making thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. If you don't like it, man, it's not good for you. It's not good for your soul. Just find something that you're passionate about and turn it into a job. You can make a living doing what you love. I just started this podcast officially. I've interviewed people before, and it's making a little bit. It's not making the kind to where I can quit my job and strictly just do podcasting, but I could see potential, and other people are doing it. Why not you? So if you got something to say, say it. Start a podcast. Or if you have a story to tell, why not tell it here? Tell your story right here on the What Makes You Famous podcast. Give me a call at 501-470-6386 or email info@radiowhat.com. That's it for this installment of What Makes You Famous. I encourage you to subscribe and stick around. There's more to come. More to come on the What Makes You Famous podcast. This is Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.
Radio What, the music you want. Hey guys, this is Shelly G with a fast fact. The video recording machine was invented by the Ampex Corporation of California in 1956. The first video recorder, the Ampex VR1000, stood 1.1 meters, 3 feet 3 inches high, and weighed as much as a small car, 665 kilograms, 1,466 pounds. Do you have a fast fact? Share it with us at Interactive Radio, RadioWhat.com.
Hey guys, this is Shelly G. She said, what? Well, you are going to have to listen to the countdown to hear what I say. And make sure to keep listening to Radio What for more information and trivia. She said, what?